Alex, it would be great to get a rundown of your background, what school you're at, and a bit about your professional journey to date. If you want to kick off first.
Of course, no worries. I'm Alex Smith. I work for the Washington International School in Washington, D.C., and I work there as an Associate Director of Academic Technology. I've been in the academic technology field for just between 10 to 15 years. I can't remember the exact number anymore. Um, and um, and yeah, we're a selective day school in Washington, D.C., predominantly American students, but we do have international students as well, speaking first language English, but also we have a bilingual diploma program. So we generally take the people through the IB program in either Spanish, French, or possibly now Mandarin, but that's still in development.
Awesome, thanks, Alex. That's great. Paul, you're next on the tiles there. Do you want to go next?
Yeah, thank you. My name's Paul Kelly. I'm head of secondary at Park International School in Lisbon. This is my third head of secondary role. Prior to here, I was head of secondary at a school in Dubai, and prior to that, a big international school in Shanghai. I dare say I don't have the same level of tech understanding that most of you have, and I'm looking forward to learning quite a lot about how you guys use things. We've got about 60 nationalities represented here at the school, so we're a kind of fully sort of Cambridge, then IB and A level international school. So there's quite a lot going on here. So the more assisted technologies we can use, the better.
Wow, thanks, Paul. Nitesh, do you want to go next?
Nitesh Joshi, I'm the head of design and technology at Repton Dubai. Started off in Manchester, sunny Manchester. Spent best part of 15 years there, 5 years. Started with school as well as head of design and technology. So like I said, currently out at Repton Dubai, and we've got over 100 nationalities. So again, the use of technology is very prevalent, and we're always looking to see what other areas are out there and avenues to explore to try and support our students.
Awesome. Thanks, Nitesh. Emily, do you want to go next?
Yes, of course. So, I'm Emily. As Max said at the start, I work for ReadSpeaker. I'm the education marketing manager for EMEA. So Europe, Middle East, and Africa is my main focus. But we are a global company. We have a North America office. We have an office in APAC as well, Australia, New Zealand. We've got a Japanese office. We're part of a larger company called Hoya, who are based in Japan. And basically our main focus is on converting written text into audio. And as my job title alludes to, I'm the education marketing manager, but we do focus on multiple different industries, transport, gaming, making gaming more accessible for people as well. But my main focus is on creating accessible, inclusive, engaging content for education institutions, including K-12. But we also work with higher education institutions and in corporate learning as well. So a big, vast, a nice vast range of different industries that we work with, but really looking to work closely with international schools because we think that our products are really good for the sort of the multilingual students, and then the students that may have a disclosed learning disability, or they may not have a disclosed learning disability. It might just be that using text to speech might support them in accessing the content in a way they prefer to.
Awesome. Thanks, Emily. And William.
Good morning or afternoon or evening, depending on where you are. I'm here in Costa Rica working for International St. Jude School. We're part of a larger group of schools called the International Schools Partnership, which we shortened to ISP, which is handy. We're part of a new initiative within ISP called the Lab Schools Project or Lab Schools. And essentially what we're aiming to do through the lab schools is find ways to scale the technology that we use throughout all of our schools. So within ISP, there's around 90 schools, a little bit more now. And there's 11 lab schools testing out different products, seeing how they work within our community and how they serve our students. So we've worked with a lot of people on various things, looking at how we could improve our interactions with our LMS or tools like Canva that we know are already highly used, but we can maybe add more resources to or provide training around. I think ultimately what we're hoping is that by combining all of these things, we can improve the student experience and give them more access to the types of learning that is most effective for them.
That's awesome. Thanks, William. Wow, I mean, great to have such a diverse group today. So yeah, I mean, just cracking into the first question. So if you could just give us a spotlight overview of your individual school settings. I know we've sort of touched on it, but if we can just go over that one more time, including the mix of learners that you all cater for, that would be great. And then we'll go straight into the different tools you currently use at your schools. So yeah, Nitesh, do you want to kick us off with that one?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got approximately 2,000 students at our school now across the junior and senior phase. As I said before, we've got over 100 nationalities, primarily Chinese, Russian, obviously English, and Indian as well. So we have obviously, and then there's caveats within that. So within that comes a whole host of different linguistic, social, economic backgrounds and needs and diversity. But it's definitely one of Repton's strengths is the diversity. And obviously we're catering towards their needs and making sure that the students are supported as best as possible.
Brilliant. Paul, be good to.
Thank you. Yeah, yes. So we're just over 60 nationalities. We're just under 800 students in the secondary phase. We are a K through grade 12 school, which having moved from obviously the UK reception to year 13, I still get my years the wrong way around. So we use I mean, language acquisition is huge. We start as mostly a kind of Portuguese school in the kindergarten. As it moves through the school, it becomes more bilingual. By the time they reach grade 6, year 7, there's an expectation of having a good grasp of English language. All of the lessons, with the exception of MFL and Portuguese lessons, are then delivered in English. So yeah, we build towards Cambridge IGCSEs, and then we do A levels and the IBDP at post 16. So the need to really be able to access the higher level language understanding is quite acute as they move from year 9 to year 10, grade 8 to grade 9, I'd say.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Alex, do you want to get it?
So as I mentioned earlier, we don't necessarily have the range of nationalities, but obviously we do still have learning requirements for different students as well. So a lot of ours is about making sure that we have the technology in place to support their needs. So there's work on audiobooks, for example, for those that perhaps have dyslexia and need some assistance with their reading. We've also been experimenting with leveled texts. I don't want to bring the word AI into it too much, but obviously that's been very useful for actually creating content that is leveled to specific learners, and making sure that they're able to engage with that content and develop their learning along the way as well. Similarly, we've been kind of looking at writing frames and different assistive technology, things like ReadSpeaker, for example, where we can actually read pages out to students, and also just kind of removing distractions from there as well. So both Google and Microsoft are providing ways of taking websites and removing all the noise from them, and then just focusing on the actual content, highlighting things like adjectives and different words on the page, so that our younger readers are able to pick those things up more easily. And then obviously just giving people lots of different options. So one of the nice things about technology today is that we have one-to-one devices in our school, and therefore students aren't necessarily having to create a written essay. It could be that they do a video project. We've just done an English project with podcasting, which still allows them to develop their writing skills because they have to write the script for it in the first place, but gives a totally new challenge to them and a new way of actually expressing themselves as well. So yeah, we found that's quite interesting.
Brilliant. Thanks, Alex. William.
Yeah, congratulations on the podcasting. I really am a fan, obviously, as I'm here with Max and you guys today. At St. Jude, we're based in Costa Rica, so the first language for most of our students is Spanish. But one of the things that we have done over the last few years is try to focus more on their ability to acquire English as their second language. The school does operate in English, but as I think we've probably all experienced, sometimes that means one thing in one place and something else somewhere else. So the majority of our classes are taught entirely in English. We do have Spanish classes that students attend every week, and then also French is offered as a kind of third language. I wouldn't say we have a lot of trilingual French-speaking students yet, but it's something that's developing, and I think it's important to keep in mind that, you know, some students may see some success with Spanish and English, but maybe some of them see better success with English and French, or English and Mandarin, or Portuguese. We have a club for Portuguese now. I think there's a lot of things that we consider when we're thinking about how we approach language acquisition from a curriculum standpoint. So going kind of in reverse order, we have the IBDP, and then we have the national program for Costa Rica here. And then in both cases, they have Spanish lessons and English available. And then we've got Cambridge IGCSE and Cambridge Lower Secondary, and then the International Primary Curriculum and the International Early Years Curriculum. So these are things that I think we look for what we can connect between all of these programs to see how we bring people along. And that's one of the areas that technology can really help us with, is seeing the data that we get across the different terms and years and groups, and seeing maybe what interventions are helping us the most, and what things maybe we need to rethink or redesign. But just in general, within the school, some of the translation tools, there are people on Google. We can do some live translation. I would say the quality is mediocre at best most of the time, but it's getting there. Live translation, I think, will be a really important part of how people operate in international schools down the road. And then there's DeepL, which I think works reasonably well, and any kind of ChatGPT type competitor will be able to do some basic translation for you. And when it comes to other kinds of language acquisition, I know that there's a lot of focus on reading. I think the data supports that reading is one of the things that pushes students in the right direction. So we have Raz Kids, Newzella is being piloted now, and then we have ExactPath and the map testing initiative we do in the school. And for those who are familiar, you'll know the map tests and how they work, but just in case, it's kind of a standardized test that adapts to the test taker and provides you with information about how they are performing relative to their previous scores and also relative to their peers. And so one of the things we're trying to do now with the lab schools is integrate some of the data we're getting from map testing and these other platforms and put them all together, visualize them in different ways, look at them maybe through different perspectives, and see how we can use the data to further the language acquisition part of the school curriculum.
Extensive amount of tools there, William. Yeah, and Nitesh, it'd be great in terms of the translation tools that you use at Repton. Could you talk to us a bit about that? That'd be great.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. So basically, we're a Microsoft school, so we use Teams a lot. So online PowerPoint, automatically translate as you're going along, and then we just work very closely with translating sort of keywords for lessons, schemes of learning, and project work as well to ensure that those languages are catered towards as well. Obviously, we have a very good inclusion department as well. But yeah, mainly it's Microsoft Teams, and then we have got a whole host of sort of assessment tools that we use to begin with to create those individual education plans, and then we also support with that. But yeah, Teams and Microsoft, Google Translate are the sort of the key ones we're using currently.
Yes, Alex, you got your hand up there. And guys, if you do have any questions at Spark, do feel free to jump in. Yeah,
I just thought it was worth mentioning because when William mentioned about translation tools on video conferencing, we recently switched to Google Meet, and they've integrated their Gemini piece into their video conferencing. And the teachers have been very, very positive about the translations that were on there. We got our French and our Spanish teachers to kind of read the translations in real time, and they were really, really positive about those translations. So we've switched to that in our school for presentations to parents, and then we've obviously allowed them to be able to translate it into whatever language it is that they are sort of able to read that content in. Because certainly not always the English is their first language. And similar with YouTube as well, the same translation tools are available on there. And so long as you create the video or the presentation in English, then the translation is excellent.
Can I just jump in and ask Nitesh, well, everybody really, but just to follow on Nitesh's point, it's just about the entry requirements exam, not the specific requirements, Nitesh, but the testing that you would do for English. Which particular platforms do you guys use?
So we don't actually have like an entry exam for students to come into Repton, but we do use NGRT testing. And then at junior school, we've got Cal 5, we've got the Pearson placement test as well. So we've got a whole host of those different ones, and we've got the Bell Foundation tracker as well.
Okay.
So the number of those. In addition to that as well, in regards to other things we do use the reader pens as well. That's become really, really large with our EIL students. So that's basically just configure it to whatever language they want. It just scrolls across the text and it translates it for you. And that's really, really useful tool that we've been using.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nitesh. And in terms of my next question, so looking at sort of universal design for learning and making learning accessible, no matter the ability, learning styles, backgrounds of the students. What types of tools have you used in your school to sort of look at this element of learning for your students? William, do you want to kick us off with that one?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have a phrase here, which is amazing learning and excellence. That's sort of our guide star when we're deciding how we design things. And I know it's kind of a little abstract. And so for teachers, we have to turn that phrase into something that we can actualize in the school. And I think when we consider all the various needs that people may have, whether it's how they learn best or how they prefer to learn, maybe they have other considerations as well. We have a program called Case V, which is essentially for gifted and talented students who have work or projects or events that they do that take up time either during the school or after school. So we have to figure out how we coordinate their time so they can go to competitions or do events or whatever is going on with them. But I think the tools that allow us to do that most flexibly, we rely on Google everything for spreadsheets to be able to coordinate information, and obviously email to be able to communicate with parents and with students. But I think when we're looking towards the future, I think what we want is to be able to provide like a robust experience that if somebody sort of looks at the first thing that the teacher represents in a classroom or presents in a classroom, or shares an idea in a certain way, that if the student wants to push back or explore that from a different direction somehow, that they'll be able to do that. I think that certain platforms make that very possible. I think Formative is one that we're piloting, and it's created by the creators of Newsella. But effectively, it gives you many, many options for how you design things in your class. So you're not limited to just saying like, okay, well, I can only make one test in this amount of time for for my science class. I really can't do more than that. Instead, you can kind of take some of the same information and present it in different ways if you like. I think ultimately what we want is for students to be able to find a space where they feel that their learning is supported and they have some flexibility to identify what is effective for them and to communicate that with us and for us to be able to respond in a meaningful amount of time. And in a smaller school, I've worked in a school that had about 120 students. That was very possible. Like we could communicate with everyone on a weekly basis potentially if we needed to. But with 650 students, or Nitesh, if we got over 2,000, you can imagine the scale of that sort of undertaking becomes very challenging. So I think one of the things that we're looking for is for technology to come in and sort of weave together something that we can put out there that supports different perspectives and allows, you know, students and parents and all the stakeholders to get something out of whatever part of the experience we're looking at. So I think one specific example would be we created a daily report function for our preschool and kindergarten classes. So basically now where the teachers were filling out like a piece of paper and handing it to parents before, now they fill out the same thing on a spreadsheet and the parents can see the information just for their student. But the teacher can see everyone together and kind of compare and see, you know, if there's a wave of absences or something, what's that about? Is it holidays? Is it sickness? Is it something else? But parents can see all this data from their kid, and it's things that they would want to know that relate to their health and their well-being. Are they consistently taking nap time or whatever the deal is? I think what it allows is like parents who are looking at one vector, they're thinking about what is my student doing, you know, during the day. I want to focus on the activities that they do. They get that information. And parents that want to know more about the health and maybe psychological state of their kid, they can focus on that information. I think that's the same approach we should take with education, is like providing a lot of options for people and then developing the things where people need the most support.
That's awesome, William. And Emily, I'd love to have a bit of a spotlight on ReadSpeaker and the kind of tools and technologies that you're implementing into schools and how that is supporting UDL more broadly.
I was just thinking as William was talking then, it's about like that learner agency, isn't it? And well, parent agency as well, giving them that option to choose what they want to know. I mean, parents will ask their children when they get home from school, what have you done today? And they won't get a straight answer. So being able to, it sounds like a great process that you've got going there. But then it is about that learner agency as well, giving them all those different options. And that's what ReadSpeaker tries to do, you know, is give them an option where they can, instead of reading a big block of text, they can listen to it. They can either download it as an MP3 or they can listen to it in a platform. So for example, we are integrated into sort of all the main LMSs and assessment platforms. So if your school uses Moodle or Canvas or Blackboard or Brightspace, then ReadSpeaker is directly integrated into that. And once it's integrated into that, all students can access it. So it really gives that universal design for learning angle there, that any student, whether they've got a disability that requires them to listen or if they just want to because that's what they prefer to do, or because of the situation, you know, they might be traveling, like you said, you know, they might be traveling and doing events because they're in the gifted and talented program, so it might be easier for them to listen to their content as they're traveling, or you know, as they're doing their sports, for example, they might want to listen to their educational content. I know that I listen to podcasts and things. If I'm trying to learn something, I'll listen to a podcast rather than read about it. But if I'm reading fiction, I'd rather read about it. And I think that's something that's quite prevalent a lot across people trying to learn, is listening is a good way to do it. So yeah, we're, as I said, integrated into those LMSs, but we also provide individual solutions as well. So for students, Alex, you mentioned earlier, students with dyslexia, for example, you have tools for them. We have a solution called Text Aid where they can it's a fully cloud-based solution. So it works across anything. It's as long as you've got internet connection, it'll work. You don't have to download it. You don't have to embed it into anything. It literally just, they can pull their documents into it. Teachers can put documents into it, and the students can listen to it. They can highlight things and save those highlights into a collection. So it's really good for revision. We have other focus tools in that solution as well. So a page mask, a page ruler. So for people with sort of, you mentioned, focusing as well and removing stuff from the websites. We're doing that within text aid with the content. But one of the things as well is the translation tools. And obviously we've all talked about the international nature of your schools and all the different languages, the different first languages that students might have. And one of the things that we can do is students can select a piece of text. They can translate that text into their first language. So say if they've got an English piece of content, they can translate that into their first language, and it just helps them with that, the English learning. Then they're able to comprehend what they're reading in English because they've been able to translate it. As well as translate it, they can listen to that translation as well. So it'll translate it for them. We use Google Translate, but you can also select DeepL instead, because we know some some of our European clients prefer the sort of data management of DeepL. I think because it's a German company, they really abide by the GDPR elements. So a lot of European clients like to use DeepL instead of the Google Translate option. But once it's translated, as I said, they can just click the button and listen to that translation as well. So it just helps them with that understanding. So yeah, there's so many different features, and I think that's what we were talking about, is providing those options for people. And that's what we really try to do, is give people different options. Accessibility is one thing, providing accommodations for people with learning disabilities, but actually it's moving away from those accommodations and actually just providing that option for everyone who might want to use it.
Brilliant. Thanks, Emily. Nitesh, how do you at Repton support UDL, and sort of what tools are you trying to implement and use within your school environment there?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, I mean, if we look at the whole scope of school, we could probably say around about 80% of our students are English as a second language. But I think as well, obviously UDL is very, very important. I think first quality teaching is still the most prevalent thing. So we do a lot of focus on that. But yeah, like I said, we're just using Teams a lot, the translation tool and that. It's just, again, I think having something that you can easily start using straight away without too much input to begin with is a big thing for teachers, I think. So if you've already got your lessons already, going and your resources are done, and you can just do quick tweaks and then start implementing it straight away to support the students, then that's obviously a big win. So like I said, I think Teams and translation tools are the big ones that we're using.
Alex?
Sorry to cut you off. I would say, obviously, our most at-need students who are highlighted, who we know about, they have their own device as well. So they've got the option to use their own translation devices as well. And then along with that goes the additional time that they need to make sure they can access the information and obviously complete tasks and do what they need to do and required to complete the lesson.
Brilliant. Thanks, Nitesh. Alex, Paul, any further insights in terms of that question?
I guess from our side, we have an emphasis on the Google suite, so we work quite an awful lot with Google, and I know that this year we moved to Google Books from Amazon. I possibly shouldn't say it on a call, but Amazon gave us an awful lot of trouble as an educational institution. I have to admit, I was very surprised. So we switched around to Google Books, and one of the nice things about that is that obviously all the highlighting, it fits inside of it, but also students are able to translate words using a direct connection with Google Translate as well. And we can obviously provide the audiobooks within it. I would say audiobooks are something that is actually more of a struggle than I was expecting it to be. I always presumed that audiobooks would become just more prevalent, and that there would be an audiobook equivalent for books in general. But it turns out that the author has to approve the audiobook before they can be created, and so there are a number of occasions where we just can't provide that piece for other people. So yeah, that becomes tricky. From the feedback perspective, because I know that that was being talked about as well. We use Seesaw to kind of collaborate with our parents. There's excellent back and forth from there. Students able to show their work to their parents, parents get engaged, and obviously there's really good evidence between that back and forth between parents and students, and that's supporting their learning.
Yes, Emily, you've got your hand up there. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, it was just when Alex was talking about audiobooks, I wanted to pop in because it's what I said, about wanting to listen to content, and I agree an audiobook option for every single book that exists would be brilliant. And that's actually something that ReadSpeaker's text, so the ReadSpeaker can do is you can import any PDF. So if you can also import images. So take a picture of a book and you import that image, and ReadSpeaker can actually it uses the OCR technology to be able to read any image and any PDF. So where there's no audiobook options for books, that's where something like ReadSpeaker comes in, because that does provide that option for them to listen to it then, and they can download it as well. So it's not just necessarily in the device they're using right then. They can download it as an MP4, put it on their phone, and listen to it as they're on the go as well.
Just a quick question on that, Emily. We have a lot of trouble with DRMs with books. And obviously, I'm certainly not looking to get around digital rights management, but clearly it is quite hard to import those books if they are protected with DRMs. Do you know of like a way of solving those issues?
So not necessarily importing them, but if you had the book as a PDF, for example, or you were able to take a picture of it, what ReadSpeaker is, it's like the own individual space for that learner. So it's not really necessarily creating like a new digital copy of it that's widely available. It would be, individual. It's very personalized for that for the user that's using it. So, for example, you could provide a physical book to a student, but you just let them know that they can take a picture of that book, put it into their text aid, and they can have that read out to them. But it wouldn't necessarily be actually like recreating that book and creating it as a digital copy.
Yeah, I feel it's a bit of a shame, really. I think they're missing a trick with just providing some basics, like you say, being able to kind of import it to a system like yours, or be able to take the text and convert it to a different font, or change the background color, or simple things like that, really, that would make things much more accessible for all our learners.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's I think that's why like OER, open education resources, are becoming so much more important as well. And yeah, I think that's a really important part of education resources is being part of that the OER experience, and giving everyone the option to download anything. It is it is a shame, like you said.
Just out of interest, Alex, when you mentioned about podcasting for your students, is anyone else using this sort of tool to help their students and engage them in the classroom at all? It's interesting to hear that.
Sorry, I'm not sure whether that was directed at me.
It's directed at anyone. Alex, if you want to kick that off, how you're doing that in the classroom would be great. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. So we decided to go down the free route for that one. So we've been using Audacity as an audio editor, and that obviously allows us to create multiple tracks and layer them on top of one another. Students can clip them. They can kind of adjust for sort of the noise levels and the gain. So yeah, it's got a lot of tools all in one place that allow us to create a really quite serviceable output. It gave the students a lot of good learning experiences in terms of knowing that what they create and what they record has to be of a high quality to start off with before they start playing with it. They seem to forget the fact that there's a lot of background noise in rooms that isn't going to come out magically after the fact. So it was good from that side of things. It would also be safe to say that there's an awful lot of really good free audio websites as well. So there's lots of audio websites for soundtracks, for backing music. I'm totally blanking on what they are at this present minute, but I'll have a look for you and see if I can pop it in the chat. But yes, you can very easily download sound effects and music and then layer them over the top. And we got some really cracking outputs from it that we also published online for our parents as well, so that they could actually listen to some of those podcasting episodes and see what we created.
Awesome. Thanks, Alex.
I will say also from the St. Jude side, this is something we've been looking into more, and this is connected to something that I'm not as involved with, but it's the international opportunities part of ISP. So they do organize things across our network of schools related to filmmaking and Model MUN and a lot of other things. But I think what we've taken from those experiences is that there's a lot of focus on media, and there's a lot of focus on us expressing something and having it be something that we can share, and kind of it's very hard to get that information across or those experiences across when people aren't there. If they go to Malaysia and they do a Model MUN and they're running around for a week doing all that stuff, like how do you describe that to a person? But I think podcasts and vlogs and all of that, those are great ways to do that. And I think one of the things Alex pointed out that I approve of definitely is like Audacity. It's free. You just start using it and it works. And there's no hiccups there. And if your school is doing other things and maybe you want to do something with Reaper or Auditions or any of the other software that's out there, those are great too. But there are also platforms online that will allow you to meet with people and record a podcast, and it will get the audio from their device rather than from the internet connection or the Zoom call. So if you're meeting remotely, you can do podcasts that way. I think the thing that I really have learned though through the filmmakers process is with the students, what I want them to think about is like always keep the mission in mind. Like there's something bigger happening. It's not about the individual thing that we're doing. It's not just like get obsessed with microphones. Like that's great too. But what you want is to really invite people into a process and share something with them that will resonate. And I think that builds a lot of culture. And I think with technology, sometimes we struggle a little bit to be like, please use Octopus BI. There's a lot of data on there. People are like, yeah, cool. I love data. But what we really want them to have is like a positive feeling when they're using these tools, because they're getting something that is really tuned for them. And podcasts are a great way to have something that's technical. It requires collaboration most of the time, and also, builds up that confidence that a lot of students really need with technology.
Can I just jump in and build on that one? We have 40 metaverse headsets here, and Inspired is producing content across from early years all the way up. I'm not sure how we get the early years to use them, but all the way up to our eldest ones. And it has been the students are very, very keen. That the reticence has come a little bit more from the staff in that respect. I think partly, speaking from my own experience of using them, it's kind of the unknown. It's fear of how bad can it possibly go. There's a little bit of that. And it's just also the time, the setup and bits and bobs like that. But I do think people would use podcasting a little bit more if they were a little bit more confident. Certainly the film stuff, I had the luck of one of the STEAM teacher didn't turn up in Shanghai, and they just said to me, well, you'll have to do it. So I spent 2 years teaching woodwork and film and all sorts of crazy things. It was a brilliant learning experience, terrifying, but brilliant learning experience. And I'm a lot more confident now with that kind of stuff. I do think sometimes we just need to chuck people in at the deep end a little bit and say, use an inset day and let's see what happens.
I think a lot of these tools are actually less daunting than people realize that they're going to be when they start that process. I know the English teachers were we got to the end of that English module, and they didn't need my support at all at that point. Like they were so comfortable with it after they'd seen it and they'd seen how easy it was to interact with it. And I just thought I ought to say as well, with regards to your headsets, that's a wonderful resource, and you can get students like to be able to visualize each other's projects sort of fairly easily with things like that. There's a program called CoSpaces, which allows you to create your own VR content. And we've had success with students uploading their projects so that people can explore them in the VR world and go and have a look around. We did like a housing project, and they had to create a house of the future, and then students had a VR headset on, and they were all exploring the house of the future that other students had made, and it just brings those sorts of things to life in a way that they can't be viewed by.
Yeah,
very cool.
Just out of interest, Paul, or to everyone else as well, how do you overcome teacher reticence in terms of new technologies? Have you found particular strategies useful for that?
Yeah, I just forced them to do it.
Yeah. Sorry, Mark.
A little
Don't
bit.
give them an option.
A little bit of I mean, I'm joking when I say I force them to do it, but it's a sort of a slightly tongue-in-cheek in that if you don't push people to do things that are different, they will just do the same thing that they've always been doing.
Yeah.
And the argument, of course, for most members of staff is, but I'm getting good results. So why would we change it? And it's a very valid argument. Of course, the counter argument to that is you're getting good results in the world we live in now, but they need to be able to access this kind of technology when they move off. And we still interview people. People still send us in paper resumes or digital resumes. I wonder how much longer it's going to be before we're just going to say, look, I need a 2-minute video so I can watch it on my phone in the taxi.
I've actually had, I've seen, job adverts that are saying, just send us a video, just send us a video of yourself. You can send your CV as well, but if you want to send a video, please do, and just like 3-minute
I just think
to yourself.
As you said earlier, there's a lot of really good quality, inexpensive apps that are able to sorry. And I think the sooner the students can get used to doing those kind of things, the better. There are lots of. I mean, I use ChatGTP to create multiple choice questions for me as starters for every lesson, so I can do a diagnostic of learning. It would have taken me ages to do before. Now I can do it in no time. I'm fairly confident that in another year or so all we have to do at the moment is send the information to the company, and they'll produce lessons in a couple of weeks as to what we want. I'm fairly sure that we'll get to a point where we adopt it and use it far more efficiently than we do now. So
yeah,
I think there has to be quite a sort of a solid plan in place. As we've kind of seen over the last 2 years, technology doesn't slow down. It just moves at the pace it wants to move at, and sadly, you have to be along for the ride, or you can't take advantage of some of the benefits that it brings. So I know 2 years ago at Washington International School, I introduced something called the Academic Technology Pathway, and it was a collection of skills that we believed that every student would need to be able to graduate and access the tools they were going to need to use in college and in work. And it went through a whole range of different things, but basically was focused on the technological areas that I believed were going to be big in 10 years' time. And AI was one of those, and it's come to fruition already. But the way that we did that was that we then asked all of the teachers to identify which skills they were already teaching inside of their classes, identified the gaps, and then we've been focusing our professional development on where those gaps lie to bring everyone up to the level that they need to be at. And similarly, we've been supporting in classes as well, so that They're not necessarily having to give up their time, but we can basically add those skills into classes and upskill students at the same time as upskilling teachers and making them more comfortable with these things as well. Recognize every school doesn't have an academic technologist that they can call on, but just by identifying those skills that you think are important for students, they're also really important for your staff.
Nitesh, did you want to jump in there?
No, it was actually a few things beforehand that we were discussing before. Obviously, speaking just from a design technology point of view, we also have things like CAD and Onshape, which is a free resource and a free software. Procreate, which can be pushed onto multiple devices, but it's just endless possibilities. In regards to the headsets, I was recently in discussion with somebody at Nottingham University, and they're using Gravity Sketch, which again is completely free, and that's going leaps and bounds in regards to modeling. And you can actually set up a classroom, and you can be in the classroom, and you can go in and take their design and manipulate it and edit it and give them feedback live, and you've got everyone else in the classroom. It's absolutely incredible. And the possibilities are limitless, and already in the space of 3 weeks, that has already progressed so much. He sent me a new video, an up-to-date version of it. And again, they're so supportive in regards to, what curriculum do you want to do, what lessons you're thinking of doing, and they'll support you in all of that. So it's really, really good initiative. So there are lots of things out there. I think the trickiest thing is always finding which thing to focus on, because there are so many things and what's going to be the best for your school and your students, and obviously getting that support. So, but I think things like this are absolutely fantastic because you can see what other people are doing and see what's working.
Yeah. I just want to give a quick shout out to DaVinci Resolve as well. We use that for our video editing. It's absolutely incredible. William, did you want to?
Yeah. Again, shout out to DaVinci and all the black magic stuff that's going on out there. Yeah, you mentioned like the push. I definitely think, Paul, that makes a lot of sense. Like, and it's not something that you can say like one time. At least for me, I feel like you have to repeat the message and kind of deliver it in different ways at different times. But the thing that I come back to is, I spent time as a STEAM teacher as well. And I want to say, I think all of us are sort of just thrown into that job the first time. I'm not sure how many people like wake up one morning, they're like, I should be a STEAM teacher in 2 years, and I'm going to plan how to do that, and then I'm going to go do that. I don't think it happens that way. Maybe today it will, but before, not so much. But I started off with curriculum development, and then I went into operations, and then went back into teaching, and I had like a very weird squirrely path in terms of education, but it led towards me looking at things through a bunch of different perspectives. And I think the thing that unifies kind of the management side, the SLT team and the teachers, is that time is really important. And if I can make a strong case and show people, demonstrate how we are saving them time with the tools, that will almost always work for the majority of our educators and our students. And so even something as simple as getting like a Canva for Education, a license or agreement with them, which is free and is an amazing resource. It's something that connects the school. And now when students go on there and they want to represent their house color, we have 4 houses and 4 corresponding colors. So, if they want to do that, that exact hex code for that color is on Canva. Everyone can see it. And it's things like that, little things come together. And once you have all of them in place, students and teachers start to realize, like, I don't have to look this up every time. I don't have to invent something from scratch every time. And I can come in here knowing that people have already thought about how to support me. And that's a really important thing, I think, for educators and for students, is knowing that that support is there and that it was designed that way. It's not an accident. It's not something that we necessarily always pay for, but it's something that we create for these people. I was until recently the head of arts, and now that I'm doing this educational technology director role, I look at things a little bit differently, but the time component is always the number one thing. And I think if we could just create time, maybe we would have a different approach, but we can't. And we have to really prioritize putting people's effort into context with that time and making sure they get what they need.
Thanks, William. Just before I move on to our penultimate question, I know we're actually quickly running out of time, but I would just like to touch on each of the processes that you use to evaluate and then implement technologies in your schools. I don't know if, because obviously there's so many tools to choose from. Paul, I don't know if you could kick that one off, just sort of briefly touching on that process of how you evaluate and then implement tools. It'd be great to understand a bit more about that from your perspective.
I guess, I mean, from my side, there's two. There's the top-down stuff that the company work with and integrate. So they do a lot of the kind of the beta testing and stuff like that first. So by the time it comes to us, they've ironed out most of the bugs. The headsets are a good example of where by the time they were introduced to us, there's already probably 150 lessons that are online. So people can get up and use them. My own approach is a lot more collaborative in terms of, we have a like every other school, we have a finite budget. So I'm asking people to justify why they need to use it, what the use will be. I want to get students because they're going to be the ones who are going to interface with it more often than not. So I want them involved. And if it's something like a VLE, then we'd engage with parents as well. We have parent work groups that come in and give us advice and feedback on how well we're doing, which is always helpful. Which is mostly helpful. So yeah, I do think, the cost of even the free ones, we all saw it during COVID when we were told use this, then use this and use this, and suddenly lots of people were using lots of different platforms, and the students were being overwhelmed. So it's making sure that there is a strategic plan for the integration of the technology, and that when you are introducing it, you absolutely know what you want it to do and what good looks like, rather than it just sort of somebody said it might be a good idea.
Yeah. Nitesh, from your perspective at Repton?
Yeah, absolutely. I think very similar to what Paul said, it definitely has to be a collaborative approach, but just having a very, very clear intent as to what the end goal is. Obviously, you're having how you're going to implement it then. So you've got a strategic plan of how it's going to look like, how it's going to be involved in the actual classrooms, and then having measurable outcomes and measuring the impact as well. So, and having a time frame within that. So just a whole school approach in regards to how those different systems would work.
Brilliant. Yeah, Alex.
And obviously
sorry,
just to jump on that. We'd have like different case studies as well. So we have a smaller focus group to see how that would work. And then obviously we think about rolling out. So that the reader pens were a perfect example of that. We tested it first with a small group. It obviously worked really, really well, and then we rolled out to much more.
Brilliant. Thanks, Nitesh. Alex, William, any final thoughts on that in terms of the procurement process?
I jump in quickly. Ours is twofold. So one side of it is research based. So when we're bringing in educational technology tools, it's generally based on where they have proven abilities to develop. So for example, feedback is incredibly important. So we'd be looking for feedback tools. So is mastery of learning and metacognition. All of these different things can be connected to different tools. And so we try and have a bit of a coverage from all areas for the things that are proven to develop student learning. Similarly to that, it's about analytics, and I connected all of our academic technology tools, or as many of them as I could, to a platform called Clever, which is free again, and one of there's a couple of benefits really. One of them is that, as William was saying, your staff have to know what tools are available to them, and in a lot of cases they just don't. So when they're all in Clever and you've got a tile for every single tool that you pay for, then that just means that they are able to see exactly what's there. They're all listed under the different types of things that they develop. And the students can get on quickly as well. They don't need to worry about a username and password combination. It's all single sign-on through there. So that's great. But also it provides an analytics platform as well. So we know exactly how many people are engaging with it. And if they're engaging with it, we can fairly safely say that they're finding it a useful tool to use. Either that, or it's Well, there could be another option, but I'm going to assume it's a useful tool to use.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. William, yeah.
Yeah, I think definitely the points about having data that you can get from what you're piloting or what you're implementing is really important. I think, even just going back to basic experiment design, like, your hypothesis that you have, whatever you're looking for from your results. Um, it doesn't always have to be a scientific process, but I feel like that supports good results with a lot of these programs. And maybe your data is sentiment or excitement rather than specific numbers related to grades or things like that. But I do think it's really important. But I also think, the best partners, and this is something that I can speak for the lab schools that we are looking for, is like the people that we want to work with are the people that are making these tools. And so I guess they have to be the type of person that can work with us. Something like Canva, there's no one to work with. You know what I mean? They just do what they do. They're a behemoth. But if we're talking about a lot of these other tools that we use or companies that we've been talking to Ascend now about their entrepreneurship program, and we've been talking to someone at Joy Schooler, Mona, who created a chat interface. Like, these are people that we can talk to, and we know the people. Like, if they send me an email and they ask me about something, I know that I can work with them, and that's really important for me. It's like the partnership side of things. Um, and so I think for the lab schools, that's a big focus for us. It's like, obviously the tool matters, but if we know that we can work with you and kind of fine tune it to what we want, that really helps. And there's a lot of tools out there that can't do that at all, but there's increasingly a lot of companies, I think, that are identifying correctly that the priorities of every school are not necessarily exactly the same. You need something somewhat modular or flexible. And so if I were giving an advice to like any of the founders or creators out there, that's really what we need. We need a partner.
Yeah.
Because that's what allows us to sort of round the corners and dot all the I's and cross the T's and all that stuff.
Yeah, that human partnership is absolutely vital, isn't it? And that actually leads me perfectly onto my penultimate question. Emily, I'd love to learn a little bit more about how you implement your tools and technologies into schools, and then how closely you work with the decision makers, with teachers, during that onboarding process, and then sort of continuing on from there.
Yeah, I mean, we've got 24/7 support available when people start to use ReadSpeaker, and we like to think of ourselves as partners with specifically with all the LMSs that we're integrated into. We consider ourselves partners with them. We're actually certified integration partner with Moodle, for example. Not all of the LMSs have that specific title, but we are partners with those other LMSs that we're integrated into as well. And we work really closely with them on the development of our products to make sure that we're developing alongside them as well, and developing alongside all the different enhancements in technology. We've mentioned AI. We're making sure that we're going along with that as well. We've been using AI before ChatGPT made it the conversation piece that it is. We've been using deep neural networks for years to create our voices. So that is an AI system that we've been using, and we didn't really talk about it before because no one really cared, because no one talked about AI. But now it's such a conversation piece that we're making sure that people are aware of that. And yeah, I think that we want those partnerships with the schools that we work with the universities that we work with as well, alongside the LMSs that we work with, to make sure that while we're integrating into the LMSs in the best way, we're also making sure that we are, like William said, every educational institution, not just schools, have different priorities, different needs, and making sure that we can be that sort of bespoke solution that they need. With all the different voices that we have, there's over 200 voices that we have. So if your school is in English but based in India, for example, we can provide an Indian accent in English. If your students would prefer to listen to a female than a male, you can do all that sort of testing, and then we can provide those different voices. So it does make things a little bit more bespoke for the schools. And then, as I said, 24/7 support afterwards as well, that's always available. And yeah, just trying to be as supportive as possible to our customers and making sure that any issues they have are overcome really quickly.
Yeah. And just lastly, in terms of, do you feel that all these tools and technologies, I mean, obviously it must enhance your school's USP to a certain degree certainly, I suppose, within certain competitive regions. Do you find this to be the case with all of the tools that you're using and have implemented and are trying and thinking about trying in the future? Do you think this adds to your school's USP? William, do you want to kick that one off?
Yeah, I think it definitely does. Being part of something that's experimental can be a challenge. There are going to be things that we pilot or aspects of the pilots that don't work the way that we want them to. It's kind of inevitable with certainly with any LMS, there's always something that you're like, why would it have been this way? But it just is the way that it is. And I think balancing that with the expectations and the kind of the hopes of the community can be tricky. But ultimately, what we are offering is that we have resources that other schools within ISP, other schools in Costa Rica simply won't have. Maybe it'll be 2 years, or maybe it'll be 5 years before they do any of this. And I think on the one hand, it doesn't mean that they're doing something wrong necessarily. They may be doing other things, but our approach is giving us access to things that other people don't have. And when I think about why that's valuable, I think if I could go back in time and go to high school, I would absolutely do things differently in terms of what I focused on, because a lot of the hobbies and talents and skills that I had were arts related, right? Or they were design related or music related. And there are dozens of ways to make money or have a career in those spaces that just didn't exist at that time. I think what I want is for people to look at where they are most successful and utilize the technology to be able to do uh, things that benefit them academically, but also that push them forward as a person. Their whole development as a human being is important and relevant. And I think we're seeing increasingly that if you can be someone who shows up and is committed to something and can bring all of your effort and attention to things, that is really vital. And technology is surrounding every job now. So if you have to go in and learn some sort of technology for being an accountant, the same thing's true for being an artist or being a teacher. And the most important piece of that is just the mindset. So yeah, I would say we want to give students the best chance to get access to experiences that build that mindset. And that's maybe our competitive advantage within the space. And it's certainly something that we promote to the parents, that like we're paying attention to this and we're aware that the future is not going to look like what today looks like. We want people to be ready.
Yeah. Paul, I know you have to hop off shortly. So just to get your thoughts on that would be great in terms of
Thank you. I mean, I agree with William. It's about it augmenting rather than taking over, isn't it? And I say a lot. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, and it's about the young people that we work with leaving with those social skills. Fundamentally, what we would all love is people that take responsibility for themselves. Children, parents, teachers, if and using the AI to support with things like, well, you need to do where you are on your learning journey because our LMS has given you the details you want. We interact with your parents through Canva and through Canvas and Google Classroom and manage back, so they know where you are. We're just asking them to be able to use the technology to support there as well. But the technological skills are going to be great, but I would agree with William. Nothing will ever supplement or will ever take over from those human skills, and working with our young people every day to develop those will put them in a much stronger place with their ability to use technology than if they can just use the technology. So I will, Max, I thank you very much. Guys, I've really enjoyed listening to you. I've written 2 pages of notes, so do expect some emails from me. But I am running because I am just about to deliver an assembly. So thank you very much for your time.
No problem, Paul. I'll be in touch shortly. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Cheers. Speak to you in a bit. All right. Cheers, guys. And so yeah, Nitesh, Alex, it'd be great to just get your thoughts on that last question there. Who'd like to kick off, Alex? Yeah.
I know I've just had a presentation to parents all about technology and what we're doing with it, and it was definitely clear in that they had real sort of wants and worries, I suppose, in terms of what we're actually doing in the school. And I think they were very happy that we were developing the technology piece. They were happy that we had a plan in place, and that we were training and developing our teachers along with that plan to try and make sure that everything was moving forwards. And I think because it's such a fast moving thing, they obviously do see it as a USP, because a lot of schools just aren't catching up with the technology as it's being developed. And to actually have a plan in place to make sure that all of these students are going to leave with the technology skills that they really should need when they graduate, really sort of helps the parents. There's the other side of it as well, in that they obviously worry about what could happen should they engage too deeply with technology. And so I think that social emotional learning and the protections that you have in place, you need to be very clear about to the schools as well. And I know with our kind of bring your own device program, we've obviously got a whole range of protections on there, but I think it's important to bring the parents along for the ride, because they're not always using the device that you're providing for them. The parents are often providing a mobile phone, and they've got sort of separate computers at home, and the software in place to protect them on those just isn't of the same quality, or possibly isn't even there. And so I think making sure that the parents really understand what you're doing and how you can help them to make sure that they're keeping their own children safe is really important.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. Nitesh.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're incredibly proud at Repton with our results and everything, with an average score of 36, 96% GCSE pass rate. So, but along with that, one of the first places they come down to with the parents or the technology and the computer science corridor, it just attracts the parents. They're so interested and so engaged to see what we're doing and what's new, and so it's definitely a USP for us. And just engaging in the conversation. But as you've all said, it's the similar things, where's it going, trying to predict what will happen in the next few years, what jobs are going to be there, not going to be there. It's all sort of the caveats, but it's what makes it interesting as well. And obviously that's what engages us to see what we can try and facilitate for the students and the parents.